Let's go. Big win. Arizona seizes control of the Big 12 with a statement performance. Shorthanded, sickness spreading through the team, missed free throws, and nonetheless, your Arizona Wildcats emerged victorious in Houston when no one thought they could. This is Postcast.
You are Locked On Wildcats, your daily podcast on the Arizona Wildcats. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
What a win from Arizona. The guts, the grit, the tenacity, the defensive performance in the second half. Arizona has solidified itself, one, as a championship contender. We knew that when healthy, but there was a lot of talk of, Arizona, I don't know if they're for real because, here are the issues that were demonstrated against Texas Tech and against Kansas. Arizona had one of the best defenses and one of the best defensive coaches ever thinking, how do we force turnovers on a team that had Braden Burry scores 0 points in the first half, that had both Krivas and Awaka in foul trouble and sitting out majority of the first half. Burry 0. No Pete. How's Arizona going to win? No, they led wire to wire in the first half, relinquished the lead early on energy plays in the second half, and Arizona came through and said, you know what? Our way of winning this is we're going to be better than you guys on defense. Arizona didn't concede a basket for 10 minutes, and the only baskets they really conceded in the second half were garbage time baskets where they didn't want to foul. Credit to Houston for making it close in that situation. But from tip-off to the finish, Arizona dominated. Arizona played a game inspired and with a very, very specific game plan. And I know Kingston Flemings ended with 17, but like I told you guys, when we played PJ Haggerty, when they've played AJ DeBonsa, when they've played Rob Wright, high-usage players struggle against Arizona. He went 17 shots to score 17. A lot of them were at the end of the game. Arizona, Bradley had the exact same stat line in terms of shots, 6 of 17, but he orchestrated the game more than Kingston did. Kingston got in foul trouble. Burries, I predicted that Arizona's real chance would be if Braden Burries had an awesome game, but we talked about his illness. He made his free throws at the end of the game for the most part, and the performance without burying the lead, toughness, defense, that's the first thing. Anthony Dell'Orso stepped up enormously. And when Arizona needed baskets early in this game, when they were holding leads and the game got closer, he hit big shots. In my opinion, the best player on the court for either team was Ivan Karchenkov. Ivan Karchenkov played fantastic defense. He played the 4 on defense, defended Sinak, kept him off the glass. Arizona was able to step up and dominate. And apologies to you guys. I was so excited in this game, I did not change my graphics. So it does say Arizona beats BYU. That is from the BYU game. I will switch that for you guys. But Arizona able to find a way in this game to play physical defense and win the game based off of being the only player with the versatility and the fortitude to defend Kingston Flemings, to guard Kingston Flemings and Chris Sinak. Name another player in the country that can do that. And he did so marvelously. Not to mention, when Arizona needed baskets in that stretch where Houston started taking the league and there was some back and forth, Karchenkov, layup. Karchenkov, free throw. Karchenkov, turnaround. And I've been critical of Bradley at times in this game, this season. I mentioned that those free throws at the end of the first half would be the thing that Arizona would regret the most is at the end of the first half, Bradley, who shoots 80%, Burries, who shoots 80%, and Dell'Orso shoots 88%, went 0 of 5. And you survive 0 of 5 from there. Foul trouble from Krivas and Awaka, who combined only played 42 minutes in a 40-minute game without Koa Pete. And they were able to win this game with a multitude of different lineups, defensive schemes that were completely different, and they found ways to manufacture better shots than Houston did, and a fully healthy and I would say functioning Houston. Like Houston did what they tried to do. The thing is, they couldn't get good shots. And defensively, what they pride themselves on, speaking of Houston, is forcing turnovers. And in this game, Arizona, shorthanded, had 5 turnovers. 5. 5 turnovers against Houston is the amount that they force against point guards more often than not. Bradley played 37 minutes, 1 turnover. Excellent job. Like, if 2 of your turnovers are from Tobe Awaka, that you're probably doing very well against Houston, because that means your point guards are not having issues. And that's the biggest thing. Now, the next takeaway that we got to go to is Dell'Orso rolled an ankle, and that's scary going forward at Baylor and against Kansas in McHale. But you can't think about that. Delhi was awesome in this game. Karchenkov was fantastic. And I think Arizona demonstrated something that actually was the biggest part of believing they can win a championship. To me, what makes me believe Arizona can win a championship even more right now versus when Arizona was 23-0 is that they can handle adversity and they can play in different styles. Before, Arizona was dominant on the glass and they dominated the paint and they would wear teams down. Teams can minimize that advantage because they're more athletic in the Big 12. Teams have loaded up on the baseline, double-teamed Krivas, double-teamed Awaka. Arizona has less spacing with Awaka than they do with Pete, even though neither really spaced to the three-point line. But they figured out, you know what? We'll play Karchenkov at the 4. He can make plays off the dribble. He can shoot open threes, and he plays off 2 feet and delivers the ball on time. Not to mention defensively, he can guard 1 through 5. They've realized how good Ivan Karchenkov is. They have created a necessity to shoot more shots, not necessarily more threes, but more shots that are orchestrated as plays as opposed to just saying, okay, we're going to get the ball inside and figure out how to muscle up a shot. And the biggest beneficiary has been Anthony Dell'Orso. And the biggest beneficiary of Anthony Dell'Orso's rise has been Arizona. It's a symbiotic relationship because when Anthony Dell'Orso opens up a dynamic weapon of shooting the basketball, Arizona can now score on the inside at an elite rate. Less help will come, and they will shoot better. Tobe and Mo didn't play particularly well. For whoever said that in the chat, there's a ton of comments, and thank you guys as usual for tuning in. And yeah, they didn't play particularly well. But if you were to look at the statistics, you would say Houston couldn't get to the paint and they couldn't score. So I would say Tobe and Mo did a very good job. I thought Mo got the worst whistle I've ever seen a player get because he blocked Kingston on that final play. He got a loose ball foul for diving on the ball, and there was a couple in the first half as well. I'm not one to complain about refs. I actually thought the refs did a fantastic job in this game because they allowed both these teams to play extremely physically and did not change the tenor of the game with ticky-tack stuff. There's a couple calls, but there's always going to be a couple calls here and there. But for the most part, they were extremely consistent. So I don't want ref complaints in here. Dell'Orso, fantastic. Karchenkov, fantastic. Let's talk about stats for a brief moment. Arizona had 16 points off of turnovers against Houston. Usually Houston, who's not a prolific offense, but their defense is part of their offense. Like their defensive identity leads to their offensive success. Arizona had 16 points off turnovers. Houston, 3. That's huge. Arizona, for the first time this year, actually lost the rebounding battle by 1 on the defensive glass and 1 on the offensive glass. That's a shame. I can't use my favorite stat. They haven't lost on the boards yet. But they made up for it in points in the paint, plus 18, 38-20. Fast break points, 12-7. Essentially, Arizona got better shots because they pushed the tempo and scored. They used their defense to turn into offense. And then from 3, Houston needs more threes. They made more. They hit 8. Arizona only at 3, but they shot 26 of them. That's not a particularly good number. That's under 33%. And Arizona said, yeah, Kingston Flemings isn't going to beat us. It's got to be Sinak from 3. It's got to be Uzan from 3. Sharp hit 2, but he shot 8, and they weren't great looks. And his majority of his points came from the free throw line. So Arizona's strategy defensively was an expert one from Tommy Lloyd. They were able to pack in the paint, load up. So Kingston Flemings is on the right or left side, whichever side. And the guard opposite, guarding usually Uzan, would put his feet on the free throw line and say, okay, as soon as he drives, we're going to put someone here and rotate out. And if it's sharp, you got to be a little closer. They did that the entire game, and it was great. And great point here from Lost Highway. Tons of long rebounds. I'm putting that on the screen. Tons of rebounds that were long, and you can't really do anything. And then Krivas, I want to talk about Mo Krivas and his importance because I think it's understated. You guys get it. JoJo Tugler gets a ton of respect for what he does defensively, and he deserves it. I think Mo Krivas was better in this game, in a game that you had to be great to prevent Kingston Flemings from getting looks at the rim. Kingston's only buckets were mid-range jump shots, that pull-up three, and bunnies where no one was there because they were playing prevent defense. And in a game where Tobe Awaka and Mo Krivas played only 42 minutes, Burries looked like he could hardly run for half the game. Kudos to him for sticking it out, by the way, and scored 0 points in the first half. Bradley, Burries, and Dell'Orso missed a ton of free throws. Arizona missed 11 free throws on the road. Arizona was still able to be the better team throughout the entirety of the game. Coming up next, I'm going to dive deeper into the stats, talk about the ramifications of this game, and much, much more. All next on Locked On Wildcats. And thank you guys so much for tuning in. Welcome to the 5-Hour Energy Flavor Draft. We're looking at every aspect of the draft to let you know which tasty flavors are the best and which might be the sleepers. You know I love Cinderellas, but I certainly love the favorites like the Arizona Wildcats. So the board is set. The flavors are ready, and only one is going to take the top spot. 5-Hour Energy has a wide variety of flavors, something for everyone. I'll start with my Cinderella pick. It's cotton candy. I'm a sweet tooth, a delicious swirl of sugary clouds, a fruity twist, and a hint of vanilla, the sweet side and of tasty caffeine with a little bit of a kick. And then my Arizona Wildcats, the top seed, the big dog that you do not want to trifle with, and is the top of my board, is berry. The big, bold berry flavor, slightly sweet with a very fruity flavor, classic mixed berry flavor with notes of raspberry and blackberry, two of my favorite fruits. So find your favorite flavor of 5-Hour Energy shots available online at 5hourenergy.com or on Amazon. Welcome back to Locked On Wildcats postcast after the biggest win of the season. Let's talk ramifications, and I'll dive into stats later. Ramifications are that Arizona now has control of the Big 12. Arizona now has a head-to-head win over Houston, on the road, I might add. Obviously, you guys know that. A head-to-head win, and now they're a game up over Houston as well. Arizona has also, I wouldn't call it a cushion, but Houston has to go to Kansas, and a pissed-off Kansas team because Kansas just got beaten by 16 at home against Cincy. I don't think Kansas is going to lose twice in a row, but I also don't think Houston's going to lose 3 times in a row. It's an incredible, incredible win because Houston had the inside track, and Arizona's stolen it from them while injured and put together the best performance of the season and have opened up a new weapon to get better going to the tournament. I also want to address that in Big 12 play, Arizona, is kind of national narrative. Oh, are they pretenders because they lost 2 games in a row? Well, since then, they've beaten BYU in Houston, at Houston, not to mention they already had a 1 seed in the initial reveal. And typically teams that are in those reveals tend to play to the spots that they're in. There are some changes, of course, but what happened is Arizona had the West. It goes San Diego to San Jose. And Houston was a 2. And Arizona now just got their best win of the season on the road against a team I thought would be a 1. They had Iowa State over Houston because they won the head-to-head. Now Arizona has added a head-to-head win over a 1 or a 2 seed over a Big 12 opponent and has really helped themselves have a chance to run through the West because Iowa State is on March 2nd. If Arizona beats Iowa State, they pretty much lock up a 1 seed, in my opinion. But knock on wood. I knocked on wood for those of you can hear that. But that really, really matters. Also, winning the Big 12 means something because it's the best conference in the country. So those are the ramifications outside of winning. Now let's get back to this game in particular. By the way, Howard, love that you're always on here. He says, time to run dinner in the Southeast. Thanks for tuning in as always. The biggest thing that I have yet to mention, a lot of the stuff I talked about, the players that stepped up, the what stepped up, but I want to talk about how defensively Arizona has an identity. And for those of you who listen to me all the time, you hear me talk about the identity of different teams. And of course, Arizona. Well, Arizona's identity under Tommy Lloyd has largely been that they are a great offensive team. It's no different in this case. They're top 10 offensively. But their defense after this game holds teams to 89 points per 100 possessions. Let me reiterate that. 89 points per 100 possessions. Arizona can guard teams like Houston and hold them scoreless, field goalless, I should say, for 10 minutes at Houston. Houston was so uncomfortable with how well Arizona was playing, how physically, how they controlled the tempo and the tenor of the game, that they played Kingston Flemings with 5 minutes left in the second half. And you may be like, yeah, of course, they brought in a star. I watch a ton of college basketball. Kelvin Sampson never, and I mean never, brings in a player with 2 fouls. That's how clear it was that Arizona had a game plan that really stifled Houston, that really caused Kelvin issues. They said, you know what, we're risking going down double digits in this first half. In fact, they did. They were risking going down double digits. They did. They trimmed it to 5, courtesy of missing 5 free throws. And by the way, those 5 free throws weren't just 5 free throws. It was the front end of a one-on-one twice from Bradley, once from Dell'Orso, and then 2 misses from Burries. That easily could have been at least 7 points right there. And Arizona kind of got through that and then Houston had a momentum. Like Dell'Orso scored late in the first half, if I remember correctly. They did that, but Houston felt like they had momentum. Then at the start of the first half, start of the second half, the first 6 minutes of the second half, I felt like Houston out-athleted Arizona, which is very, very rare. Sanak had a couple of ridiculous boards. They had a couple mid-range jump shots, and one for Flemings. And they hit a 3 from Sharp. Uzan hit that 3 to seize the first lead of the game for Houston. And as that happened, my dad said, what do you think the odds are that Arizona wins? And I go, usually in this situation, not very good, but Arizona's been the far better team. Arizona's been the far better team today. So I believed that Arizona could win because their strategy was muck up the game defensively, make it really, really hard to score, and then when Houston is used to doubling post-ups, Arizona didn't have their post guys in. Houston didn't know what to do. They've brought ball screens, made Khalifa Sacco guard because JoJo Tugler got in foul trouble. And it is important to note, Arizona put foul pressure on. Tommy Lloyd talks about it. Rim pressure, foul pressure. They made Khalifa Sacco guard, made JoJo Tugler guard. Sharp picked up 3 early. Flemings had 3. And they made guys guard their yard, which Houston usually does so well. But they're not used to doing it on an island without hedging ball screens and stuff like that. And Arizona had more spacing on the court because they played Karchenkov as the 4. And he was a playmaking 4. He drove, he played off 2 feet, he scored, and then he also hit a very, very timely 3. Karchenkov, I thought, was the best player on the floor the entire game. I know I'm biased. He's my favorite player on the team. I've said this 1,000 times. But in this game, he guarded Kingston Flemings at numerous junctures, and he did very well. And at the last critical stop Arizona got, he defended Flemings. And then on the other end, he was able to, defend Sanak as well and keep him off the glass. Karchenkov had 9 boards. But I thought most importantly is he played 39 minutes knowing that he had a vital role of playing the auxiliary big as well as stretching the floor, making Houston not be able to trap. And he went downhill and scored off 2 feet. He had timely baskets. And when Arizona needed baskets, when Flemings and Sharp and started playing better and Sanak got offensive rebounds, I saw Ivan Karchenkov say, okay, Kingston Flemings is going to try to guard me. Nope. Sanak's going to try to guard me. Both are going to go in the top 10 of the draft, but neither can stop me. And that's the guy who's the glue guy, the hustle guy, taking it to a new level. And I want to bring up a quote that Tommy Lloyd had. Tommy Lloyd said, essentially, against BYU, we have a ton of really good players, and sometimes they have to take a back seat, and they're fully capable of doing more. He was speaking about Dell'Orso and Karchenkov. And in back-to-back games, that tandem, they scored 40 against BYU, and they scored 38 against Houston. And without those type of performances, Arizona probably loses to Houston. That's what you need. But now let's talk about how good this team can be with Koa Pete. Koa Pete, not to mention Aristote. Like, shout out CD Gay, Evan Nelson. They played hard. They played well. Doesn't show too much in the stat sheet, but CD Gay altered shots, blocked shots. He did well. Nelson helped maintain possession, didn't turn the ball over, wasn't harassed by the size and tenacity and physicality of Houston. That's more than a ton of 9th men in the country can say, 10th men in the country can say. And I felt like Arizona has diversified how they score the basketball. Arizona dominated on the interior in a different way. They lost the rebound battle. I mentioned that as well, Clay. But you're right. First game, they've lost the rebound battle, but they did dominate the interior. Both can be true. They scored 18 more in the paint, and they shot 31 free throws. They missed a lot of them, so they only ended up with 58 paint-oriented points, which is free throws plus paint points. Probably should have been something like 65. And if you score 65 against Houston, not to mention they diversified by having the threat of threes. They only hit 3 threes, but don't think Houston didn't feel the threat of Anthony Dell'Orso spacing the floor, the threat of playing small ball and Karchenkov spacing the floor. It was a different look, and they made it a physical game, and it wasn't a game where it was so ugly offensively. It wasn't a 55-50 win in which they just, pushed Tugler and Sennacher because they're heavier with Awaka and Krivas. No, they ran good offense. For the first half, Arizona shot 56% from the field against Houston. They had very few turnovers. And the other point to note is, like, the first half, Arizona had 10 points off turnovers, 0 for Houston. Arizona, 20 points in the paint, 10 for Houston. Like, if they made their free throws, they could have been up 15 at half, and we have a totally different feel. Like, it feels almost they survived because they trailed for a split second. But I would say for 37 of the 40 minutes, Arizona dominated against Houston at Houston. And I think this is a statement win in which Arizona has created a narrative that they can beat the best teams in the country on their road court. And if you look at their wins, they have beaten Florida on a neutral. Florida is probably the 5th or 6th best team in the country right now by my eye. They have beaten UConn, who's probably 6th or 7th best team in the country. They have beaten, and that was on the road. They have beaten Houston on the road. And I believe they're going to put some payback on Kansas soon. Resume's great. The wins are even better. And I just want to reiterate, if Arizona can do this without Koa Pete, imagine what the team can do with Koa Pete when they figured out multiple ways to space the floor and they have a confident Anthony Dell'Orso. We really got to hope his ankle's all right. But that was a great performance, stepping back on the court and being a threat to shoot free throws. Also, press break, so much better. We'll touch on that and a little bit more coming up next on Locked On Wildcats. Ever wanted to experience the NBA Finals live and in person? FanDuel is giving you the chance to turn that dream into a reality with their NBA sweepstakes. Here's how it works. Use your profit boost on any NBA future, and you'll automatically be entered for a shot to win NBA Finals trip for 2. That's right. Flights, tickets, the whole experience. And if you're already looking at the board and thinking about which team can make a deep run, this is the perfect time to lock it in. And now, not only can you pick cash and you win cash money, but it could also send you the NBA Finals. So visit FanDuel.com and get started. Use your profit boost on an NBA future and get entered for your chance to win a trip to the NBA Finals. Play your game with FanDuel, the official sports betting partner of the NBA.
I'm Clea Butler, host of Locked On Women's Basketball, and this is Mazda's Women's Basketball Snapshot, celebrating the work no highlight reel can ever capture. It was a heavyweight showdown between number 3 South Carolina and number 7 LSU, and the Gamecocks rose to the occasion. South Carolina secured a hard-fought 79-72 victory to stay atop the SEC standings, using a balanced offensive attack to outlast the Tigers. Tessa Johnson led the way with 21 points, while Raven Johnson added 19. Medina Okot dominated the paint with a double-double, finishing with 12 points and 17 rebounds, while Joyce Edwards chipped in 10 points to round out the scoring. With the statement win, the Gamecocks now turn their attention to a road matchup at number 23 Alabama on Thursday. These moments are earned off the clock, those long before the lights ever come on. The sweat, the fakes, the doubt, the scrapes, and coming back for more every time. Mazda puts that same drive into every detail. Wins define the moment, putting in the work, that defines you. There's more to a Mazda because there's more to you.
And there sure is more to the Arizona Wildcats. I have a stat for you guys. A very, very interesting stat. Arizona, per CBS Sports Research, Arizona's top 3 wins, Houston, Florida, and UConn. The 3 best wins they have on their schedule, and all will age well. All 3 have been earned by making 3 threes or fewer. The win-loss record in games with 3 or fewer made threes versus top 3 teams in the last 5 years. 2025/2026 Arizona, 3-0. Everyone else, any guesses? Send them in the chat real quickly before I spoil it. I'll let you guys send them in, and I hope you guys don't cheat because I'll say it now. Everyone else in the last 5 years, 2-72. Arizona has ways to win that no other teams in the country have had for 5 years. They do not rely on the three. If they hit threes, the other team is done for. If they hit no threes, but space the floor and create more space for driving lanes, for Jaden Bradley to probe and get shots, Karchenkov to get downhill, they've opened up the court and become like a drive and kick offense, and then they drive again. And then most teams can't rebound like Houston, and they won't shoot so many long threes that become second chances, which is an astute point from the comments. Arizona's opened up their offense and created more space. And here's the second stat. Arizona has the Evan Mia. He's got this stat called kill shots, which means 10-0 run. And 10-0 runs. Arizona has 29 10-0 runs on the season in 26 games now. Or no, 27 games. And they have 29 of those, a lot of them against very good teams. And that was just the 9th kill shot allowed by Houston. Arizona held Houston scoreless or field goalless for 10 minutes. And Arizona has the capacity to, one, beat you offensively without hitting a three, without hitting many threes. And two, they can stifle some of the best offensive teams to not even scoring for 10 minutes from the field and not fouling that much either. Like on the road floor without two of their players in their rotation and an ill Braden Burries. That was a statement win, a program character win, and in my opinion, the best win of Tommy Lloyd's career at Arizona. That's how I feel about this game. Arizona has an inside track to win the Big 12. I believe they've made it very hard for them to fall off the one line, which is huge because the West Coast is a big advantage geographically. And let's talk about Koa Pete for a moment. Koa Pete looked healthy, engaged, supporting the team just as you'd expect. But when he's back, Arizona can dominate the glass even further because they have more waves of depth attacking the rim. They can put Tobe Awaka in a role of just being an aggressive guy who gets rebounds. And yeah, Tobe has been fouling a lot. And one of the comments says made dumb fouls, the free throw shooting is going to cost him. Yeah, but it didn't cost him against Houston at Houston. Like, think about that. Tobe and Mo had minimal impact because they were in foul trouble. And I will say Mo had an enormous impact defensively at different stages of this game. But, like, if you were to statistically look at it, they didn't dominate the glass because they're out of the game. So you could look at it the other way. Arizona, without Tobe and Mo for many, many minutes of this game, still became within 2 rebounds of out-rebounding Houston. That's how good this team was on the glass. They also didn't have Koa Pete. So they basically played without 3 of their best 3 bigs for a large portion of the game and stayed even on the glass until the final 2 offensive rebounds from Houston. And now you look at what Arizona can do. Offensively, they have an extra playmaker, another guy who can put pressure on the rim, a guy who can score from 15 feet from Koa Pete. That's totally different from what Tobe Awaka presents. That's a very, very big thing. And then it allows Tobe to do what he does best. Play with unbridled energy, physicality, and just the strength that makes it so difficult to play against Tobe. It's hard to play as hard as Tobe plays in extended minutes. And that's the beauty of Arizona. They have depth, and they have more depth than we even knew. It was an 8-man rotation, the best 8-man rotation in the country. And then Arizona added 2 guys that are playing well. They may play sparingly come the tournament, but experience for CD Gay, who's acquitted himself very, very nicely, is enormous. Evan Nelson was not surprised, not overwhelmed by the tenacity and length of Houston. I'm very, very optimistic because I talked about, was it the end of the season when Koa Pete went down and Arizona had lost 2 games? Or was it a peak in a valley, right? And the peak, you start with a peak of winning 23 in a row. You lose 2 in a row. Is that a plateau and a regression that you can get out of? That was the question. And instead, I ended it by saying, there's a world where it's a plateau, and that's a really unfortunate. But I choose to believe, and I said this on a show talking about Koa Pete, if you guys want to rewatch it, I choose to believe that this is a valley And the peak will exceed the peak prior of winning 23 in a row because Arizona will have to find other ways to win. And they found other ways to win and beat a team that was favored by 6.5 over Arizona. A shorthanded Arizona with Braden Burries, the main hope to score the basketball. The guy Kelvin Sampson tried to take away. Non-factor for the most part. Kudos to him for fighting through illness. He did a great job for what he could do. But he wasn't right. No Koa Pete, no Dwayne Aristode, limited Tobe, limited Mo Krivas due to foul trouble. Free throws, abysmal. And Arizona was more physical, more disciplined, took care of the basketball, and played stellar team basketball. Best win of the season. Things are looking up in Wildcat country. Thank you guys for tuning in. As always, I thank you guys every time you hop on a postcast. So we got our usual crew. Some of you guys are in here every single game, and I sincerely appreciate you guys. I'll have another show breaking down this and how impactful it is going forward, both bracketology and Big 12 talk, and just how important it is for Arizona's program to beat a team like Houston, who's ran the Big 12. The Big 12 runs through Tucson now. Have a great day, guys. Watch some Duke, watch some Michigan. That's what I'm going to do right now because it's been a pleasure. Made my day to see them win, and I hope it made yours. Thanks for tuning in. Bear down, everyone.